Did you know that the Beatles have sold more records than any other band in history? An estimated 600 million units worldwide? That's no small feat, and it all started in the humble city of Liverpool, England, in the year 1960. This was the birth of a phenomenon, a band that would change the face of music forever. The Beatles, composed of John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison and Ringo Starr, each brought their own unique flair to the group. Inspired by the rock and roll of the 50s, they began crafting a sound that was all their own. In the small, smoky clubs of Liverpool and Hamburg, they honed their skills, playing night after night to enthusiastic crowds. It was here, under the dim lights and the rhythmic sway of the audience, that the Beatles defined their sound. It was in these small clubs where the Beatles crafted their sound, a sound that was about to take the world by storm. From Liverpool to the world, the Beatles' rise to stardom was nothing short of meteoric. Strumming their way from the dimly lit clubs of Liverpool to the bright lights of global fame, the Beatles, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison and Ringo Starr, carved a path that was as unique as their sound. Their breakthrough in the UK was swift and decisive. With the release of their debut album Please Please Me in 1963, they captured the hearts of listeners with their fresh, invigorating melodies and harmonies that no one had heard before. Their first hit single, Love Me Do, was a trailblazer, setting the stage for what was to come. It was a simple, catchy tune, yet it was a powerful statement of a new wave in music. The Beatles had arrived, and they were here to stay. And then, Beatlemania exploded. It was an intense fan frenzy that swept across nations like a tidal wave. Everywhere the Beatles went, they were met with throngs of screaming fans, spellbound by their charm, their charisma, and of course, their music. The Beatles were unlike anything the world had seen or heard. Their sound was a concoction of pop, rock, and rhythm and blues, laced with a dash of experimental elements that kept their music fresh and surprising. They were young, they were bold, and they were unapologetically themselves. They sang about love, about life, about dreams and hopes, resonating with the youth of the time and beyond. But it wasn't just their music that captivated the world. The Beatles were icons of a cultural revolution. With their distinctive mop-top haircuts, their cheeky humor, and their irreverent attitudes, they embodied the spirit of the 60s, a time of change, of liberation, of breaking away from the old and embracing the new. The world had caught the Beatles' fever, and it was just the beginning. With their rise to stardom, the Beatles had set a new standard, a new benchmark for what music could be. They had ignited a spark that would continue to blaze brightly, forever changing the landscape of popular music. Not content with just making hit records, the Beatles started revolutionizing music itself. As they evolved, so did their music. With every album, they pushed boundaries, exploring new territories in sound and lyrical content. Their experimental phase was a turning point not only for them, but for the entire music industry. Consider the album Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Released in 1967, it was unlike anything anyone had heard before. The Beatles took the concept of an album to another level, creating a unified piece of work with a narrative arc, rather than just a collection of songs. It was more than music, it was a sonic journey. They used the studio as an instrument, experimenting with innovative recording techniques such as sound effects, multi-tracking, and non-traditional instruments. Then came Abbey Road, an album that exemplified their musical maturity. Its iconic medley on side 2 is a testament to their songwriting prowess and studio wizardry. The seamless transition of one song into another was a groundbreaking move that inspired countless musicians to see the album as a coherent artistic statement. And let's not forget Let It Be. The Beatles' final studio album, it was an honest reflection of their journey as a band, filled with raw emotion and poignant lyrics. Despite the turmoil within the group, they produced a masterpiece, proving that even in their darkest times, they could create timeless music. The Beatles' innovative use of the studio transformed the way music was recorded. They made the studio a place of creativity, where the impossible became possible. Their influence extended beyond their sound, changing the way music was written, recorded, and produced. The Beatles didn't just play music, they changed it. They redefined what a band could do, what an album could be. They challenged conventions and broke norms, influencing generations of musicians who followed in their footsteps. The Beatles were more than just a band, they were a musical revolution. The Beatles were pushing boundaries, changing the way we understand and experience music. They weren't just creating songs, they were crafting experiences, forever transforming the landscape of popular music. In 1970, the world was shocked as the Beatles announced their breakup. A period of intense creativity and innovation had ended, leaving fans and the music world in disbelief. The reasons for the band's breakup were complex and multifaceted: internal conflicts, creative differences, and the heavy pressures of their unparalleled fame. Each member of this iconic quartet ventured into solo careers, carrying with them the rich musical heritage they had established together. John Lennon, with his raw, introspective style, gifted us timeless classics like Imagine and Instant Karma. Yet his life was tragically cut short in December 1980, a loss that profoundly shook the world. Paul McCartney, the melodist of the group, embarked on a successful solo journey, forming the band Wings, and releasing hits like Maybe I'm Amazed and Band on the Run. His knack for crafting memorable melodies remained undiminished, proving that his creative prowess extended beyond the Beatles. George Harrison, once dubbed the Quiet Beatle, emerged with a strong spiritual voice. His solo debut, All Things Must Pass, is hailed as a masterpiece, featuring the chart-topping My Sweet Lord. Sadly, Harrison's journey was cut short by cancer in 2001, leaving a void in the music world. Ringo Starr, the backbone of the Beatles' rhythm, pursued an eclectic solo career. He scored major hits with It Don't Come Easy and Photograph, showcasing his unique vocal style and songwriting abilities. His all-star band continues to tour, keeping the Beatles' spirit alive. The Beatles' breakup was a significant event in the annals of music history, marking the end of an era. However, each member continued to make their mark in the music world, their solo careers providing us with new ways to appreciate their individual talents. Their music, both as a band and as solo artists, continues to inspire and resonate with listeners worldwide. The Beatles may have disbanded, but their music lived on, each member continuing to make their mark in the music world. More than 50 years after their breakup, the Beatles' legacy endures. The four lads from Liverpool who shook the world with their music did more than just create unforgettable tunes. They shaped culture, fashion, and the very fabric of popular music. Their influence can be seen in the works of countless artists who followed them. From the Rolling Stones to the Arctic Monkeys, from U2 to Ed Sheeran, the Beatles' pioneering spirit and innovative approach to music making continued to inspire and guide musicians across genres. They pushed boundaries, broke rules, and in doing so, changed the face of music forever. Their impact extends beyond the realm of music. The Beatles were cultural icons, their influence seeping into the zeitgeist of the 60s and beyond. Their unconventional hairstyles, their distinctive collarless suits, and their attitude towards life and art became symbols of a generational shift. They stood for freedom, rebellion, and the power of individuality. The Beatles' continued relevance is evident in the ongoing interest in their music. Album reissues such as the remastered edition of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band continue to top charts and find new audiences. Tributes to their work can be found in all corners of the world, from Broadway shows like Let It Be to cover bands performing in local bars. Their influence extends to modern artists too. Musicians such as Oasis, Radiohead, and Coldplay have all cited the Beatles as a major influence on their work. Contemporary artists continue to sample, cover, and reinterpret Beatles songs, ensuring that their music remains fresh and vital. The Beatles also left a lasting impact on the music industry itself. They revolutionized studio recording, pioneered the concept album, and were among the first to use music videos as a promotional tool. Their innovative use of technology and their creative approach to songwriting and recording continue to shape the industry today. From Liverpool's clubs to the world's largest stages, the Beatles left an indelible mark on music and culture. Their legacy, like their music, lives on. From their formation to their breakup and beyond, the Beatles' journey was a roller coaster ride of highs and lows. We started with the band's humble beginnings in Liverpool, delved into their meteoric rise to global fame, and explored the hysteria known as Beatlemania that swept the world. We dissected their musical revolution, the iconic albums and songs that shaped a generation, and their role in the cultural upheaval of the 1960s. We then navigated the turbulent waters of their breakup, and the subsequent solo careers of John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. Lastly, we evaluated the enduring legacy of the Beatles, their timeless influence on music, culture, and fashion, as well as the ongoing interest in their work. The Beatles were not just a band, they were a phenomenon, a revolution, a legacy, and their music, well, that's timeless.